What is up, scoundrels? It's your man Clash coming to you with a new video. This is on a defensive comp we've been working on, showing some serious promise in the last few rounds of GAC. You'll notice in the intro I had a lot of good feedback from both my opponents and others. So we're going to review that. It is a defensive theory craft video, so just remind you all, it is not easy to make these. It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of effort, and so there's nothing perfect about the way this is played or how it's being done. I just want to make sure you all see how it's working and the mechanics of this team, because I think it has a lot of promise. It is a longer video, so if you want to bounce around, those are the timestamps. Let's look at the team in review now. This is, of course, JTR Team Rampart, and that JTR, of course, starts with the initial leader here of Jedi Training Rey. She does a lot for the team. I think everyone's pretty familiar with it, but not many people use her on defense, and I think this can be sort of exploited in this comp specifically. She's giving a lot of crit chance, a lot of critical damage, a lot of turn meter disruption with those exposes, both positive for you and negative for the enemy team. I'm showing you sort of the main parts of their kits I think have an impact on the overall synergy between all these characters. BB-8 really gets the turn meter train rolling with his convert data transfer, and of course R2 is sort of spreading out a lot of love to everyone, both in damage and cleansing, and of course the most important part I think of this is smokescreen. Once he gets rolling, he gives smokescreen, and I have JTR modded such that she actually gets the sort of soft taunt by hiding everyone else. And when that happens, of course, with the Vet's rework, anytime a resistance leader takes damage, they start really ramping up their damage. And you'll see in some of the footage, they become sort of nuke monsters, especially Vet Chewie. I think Vet Han, of course, is going to be sort of the machine gun, as he's a little bit faster and he can really disrupt things with his AoE stun and dispels and all that stuff. So hopefully you'll see, if you're going after Rey, Galactic Legend Rey, and you've gotten up your Chewie, I still think it's important that you get Vet Han up, because this duo together is really, really nice. Not only are they home, they have a home here in this JTR Team Rampart, a defensive powerhouse so far in many rounds of my GAC, and from some of the feedback I've gotten, others that have tried it, done really, really well also. So now let's get into the modding specifically. Modding is, I think, one of the things we're still exploring. I definitely wanted JTR to still do a lot of damage and be fast, have some good potency so she could apply her mind tricks well, but I also needed her to have a lot of protection so that she gets the smokescreen, which allows her to be the sort of mini tank without having a taunt. R2 I put a lot of offense on, basically on the triangle and the cross, just allowing him to give more of that to the vets, which is going to help their damage increase even more. BB-8 I do a little bit differently. I actually have a crit avoidance arrow with speed on it, because it's a part of his mastery. He gets more critical avoidance and an almost 50% critical avoidance if you add his relic mastery up with that, plus a decent amount of speed. People a lot of times will underestimate just how durable he is. He's either evading or he's not being crit, and that of course makes life really problematic for everyone. You basically want to mod Vet Chewie almost like a Droideka. It really slow and allow him to build that offense with his unique, turns him into a one-shot machine. I got a lot more speed on Vet Han, but same thing, a lot of offense, crit damage, offense on the cross as well. And I'm saying so far this does work pretty well. What you'll see here is actually just some of the screenshots I've had for my GAC where I've noticed some really interesting holds, whether it was Night Sisters or Mirror, or other variations. In fact, this one that you'll see right now has got EP and like things I thought would have at least given it a chance. That includes a crew, nest. It really didn't work. And then of course you've got something like this where the kitchen sink gets thrown at it, and makes things really interesting. Now when it does not get a hold, it's usually because it's getting countered by something like Darth Revan. And this individual actually said that it was really close that he lost his Basilisk. So it's a really not great banner situation for people that are even taking something stronger against it. So looking at it now and looking at it in action, what I'll note first is that this is an under-geared CLS team from a ratio perspective. Yeah, I think if you had a relict CLS team, fully relict on something like this, you'd have a much better shot of being able to beat it. However, this is again just showing you sort of best case scenario. My buddy Pills on my shard actually helped put some of this footage together for me, and he's throwing sort of his best at it. What's really fascinating is that they still get going, right? The CLS team as you know, like they can do a lot of things with turn meter, get a lot of stuns going, but because Vet Han and Vet Chewie are just such strong characters, you wouldn't really want that to go against you. And so automatically you see now we've got Vet Han killing Chewie, and not only that, Vet Han, you'll notice in a lot of the footage, doesn't take a lot of damage once he starts getting debuffed. The more debuffs are applied to Vet Han, the more tanky he becomes. And so I really think that people underestimate just how strong he is, and of course how tanky he becomes. So now we've got Night Sisters going out of this, which is there are obviously more relics on this, and that's something to consider. They get going. The Night Sisters, of course, start perfect move so far. Stunning Vet Han, getting the Dispel out there, and getting Plague out is going to be pretty much your only option here. The challenge is just how hard the vets hit, and you'll notice very quickly they're almost already now at this point they're already past the point of killing 2 Night Sisters, so the zombie revive is going to stop really working. It's only going to be focusing on can Daka actually get revives going quick enough to make sure that they can revive and they can keep reviving and do the whole Mother Talzin leadership annoyance thing. So now we're looking at this, and it's interesting because you'll notice JTR is on the brink of death, and that's actually not good for you. You don't want her to die. If she dies, they basically become Super Saiyan. You see they both have full turn meter now, and now it's just game over. Unfortunately, I think maybe you could have played it a little bit differently, and it could have worked, but it's again really easy to underestimate. She doesn't do very well with mirrors, as she's had pretty bad experience with mirrors in the past. Mostly, I think the challenge here is going to be that BB-8 on my side goes first, and you really don't want to put yourself in that situation where the enemy BB-8 goes first, because she's not going to get any of that bonus turn meter from BB-8, and then everyone's going to start getting just picked apart. And so it goes a full 18 seconds from the first move that he had with BB-8 to him being able to go again here with JTR. And that's that's again not a position you want to put yourself in, having only taken one move and now you're down 2 characters. So it doesn't end up going well. I think he ends the video pretty early because it was just it was going to be a waste of time. On offense, I've used it a few times. Once in GAC, as you'll see this footage here against this decently relicked Zeta Hux First Order team. This was also when my JTR was Gear 12, and she died quickly, and then the vets turn into Super Saiyan, and of course they then take over the whole thing. Being down 1 character wasn't really a bad thing for this group because it was the right person to have died. If it would have been BB-8 or R2, that would have been a little bit more of a challenge for me to get around, but because they went and took out my poor JTR, they went and came to her defense, and ended up being, I think, a 56 banner win for me, which is pretty good. I'll take that against a highly relic crew team, and it didn't feel like the battle was ever really in question once once they got going. So the next one I actually have here is against a Padme team. The only one that didn't have relics on this one is the Anakin. But still a challenging group to get through, right? Because there's a lot of counterattacking and assists and attacks out of turn that lock that protection up buff, which makes them basically immune to crits and dispels and debuffs. But the good news is there was a point where I was able to at least focus on Anakin first, and if it's not a locked debuff or locked protection up, Chewie actually dispels that with his special, and then it becomes he's able to crit through it, which allowed him to one-shot that Anakin. If Anakin had been Gear 13, Relic 7, it probably wouldn't have gone as well for me. Maybe wouldn't have been able to one-shot him. But I was still, confident and happy that I was able to get through both Anakin and GK quick enough to where then I could start putting out enough damage on the rest of them. So I hope you like this video. If you have thoughts or comments on it, please leave them down below. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks.